Hey, it's Barb and Gabby again, and today we are taking a hike up the side of the hill, and we're going to tell you the story of the day that I saw the big guy, and we're going to point out the places that it happened and give you the details on what happened that day. So, that day, we hiked up to the top of the hill. Mostly it was just, for exercise. Farther up the valley up there, we had been hearing screams and I kind of thought that's where all the activity was. It really didn't occur to me yet that Bigfoots were down here too. So I really wasn't expecting anything down here. But I wanted to get up to the top of this hill and get a look at the valley on the backside. There's this timber faller who told me about this valley on the backside, and he said that's where the Bigfoots lived. So that kind of inspired me to come up here and get a look at it. So we're almost to the top. We're just below the top of the hill, and I sat down here on this stump to look at the view and take a little break. And from just below me, maybe 75 feet to 100 feet down through the trees here, I could hear this talking. And I didn't think much of it, there had seen some hunters up here, and I thought, okay, well, there's probably some people down there hunting. And a few minutes later, it got a little louder, kind of like an argument was going on. It wasn't getting louder like they were coming closer. It was getting louder like it was just more animated. And at that point, I realized they weren't speaking English, and it was kind of strange. And I thought, well, okay, maybe German. They're talking German, maybe. And so at that point, it was German hunters, I guess. Well, then it got a little louder still, and it was like an argument. They were talking over each other back and forth. There were at least two individuals, and when it got louder again, then I realized that it was no language I'd ever heard before. It was basically just gibberish. And so I still was not thinking Bigfoot. It occurred to me, every horror movie I'd ever seen. So maybe there was some kind of mutant German hunters down there, I didn't know what it was, but it was a little unsettling. So I wanted to make sure that they knew that somebody was up here. So I didn't really want to holler out, and letting them know that I was up here by myself. So I got my sticks out and I hit them once, and the sound immediately stopped. It went silent, and I sat here for a few more minutes and didn't hear anything, no sound, no movement, no nothing. And we decided it was time to move on up to the top of the hill. Before I put my sticks away, I thought I'd hit them one more time and see if there was any kind of a response. So I stood up and I smacked them once, and then from directly behind me here, you can see it's pretty thick through there. You can only see just a few feet, and it drops off right down there too. So it was only just maybe 15, no more than 20 feet behind me here. I heard this, just a real quick growl grunt. And at that point I was thinking bear, maybe, something like that. But I knew it was time for us to move on. So anyway, that was probably, about an hour before dark, I guess, late in the afternoon. And it was November 1st, 2012. This is where the first occurrence happened that day. So we're going to go on and hike up to the top of the hill, and on the way back down I'll stop and show you where I heard the whistles, and I'll show you where I saw the big guy. So we'll see you in a little bit. Bye. Okay, here we are up at the top of the hill. It's pretty late in the day. The sun has just gone down over that way. And this here is that valley that I came up here to get a look at. I don't know how it's going to look on the camera, but it's extremely steep down in there. That's the valley where the creek that runs past my cabin comes from. And I've hiked up in there as far as I can, but it's just straight up and down on both sides, and the creek is nothing but a series of waterfalls, which makes it virtually impossible to get up probably any farther than, say, maybe about right down in there. I think it was as far as I got. One of these days, I want to get up in there, and I suspect they might spend their days up in that area, because from there, it's just a quick jump over the hill here into this valley. We've got, I don't know if it's going to show up very well, there's the top of Mount Rainier right there. There's Sun Top right up there. The village where we heard all the screams, right up in there. So I suppose that's about 5 miles away. But it's a particularly gorgeous view from up here, wouldn't you say? So anyway, this is where we came to that day, and we rested for a bit, and then on the way back down was when I heard the whistles, and I got to see the Bigfoot. Really big Bigfoot. Okay, so we're going to head on back down, and we'll see you down the trail. Okay, so this is where I was when I heard the whistles that day. We were on our way back down, and I reached this point in the trail. You can see where the trail is here. That's where it connects and crosses the logging road there. I got to this point in the trail, and from directly beside me here, I heard what sounded like a loud human-like whistle. Of course, I looked immediately, and I mean, it's pretty open through here. You can't see anything. There was nobody there. And immediately following that one, there was a second whistle that came from directly below me over here. Just, it sounded so close that, but as you can see, it's wide open through here. I can see all the way over to the other side of the road over there where it drops off. So I couldn't tell where either whistle came from. Both sounded human. And at the time, of course, I didn't know what to make of it. I thought to myself, well, it must be elk, you know. Elk whistle, but they don't generally sound like that, but they do whistle, so I just kind of chalked it up to, well, that must be elk. And then when we got down the road here, we turned and went that way, and Gabby was a little ways ahead of me. When the road goes around a little curve there, she stopped and looked back at me, and so I knew something was ahead, and I went a little farther, and I could see there were two elk standing there in the middle of the road. So I thought, okay, well, that must have been the whistles. That must have been what I heard. And as we passed, the elk just kind of looked at us and stepped off the edge of the road, and as we went by, I could see there were a few more over the side. You know, I didn't think a whole lot about it, neither did Gabby. And that's when we continued on down around that next switchback, and right down there at the bottom of the hill is where I saw the big guy. So this place here has been very active. The day that we made the logging cable in a tree video, we were right down there, just right over there, and I saw something big and black move through the trees right over here, but it was just a quick flash. And we could hear something moving, and I was making a video that day. Of course, everything was quiet while the camera was on, and then the battery died, and we sat here and listened for a while, and we did hear more movement, but we never found any tracks or figured out what it was. And then there's been other times that I've come up the trail over there and startled something just right down through there, through those trees, where it kind of drops off into a little ravine that goes down to the creek. You know, you startle something and it moves so fast. Even if you're looking in that direction, you see, you know, the stuff moving, the leaves settling, you know, the stuff that's kicked up is floating down, but you don't even get a glimpse of what it was that moved, that you startled. And I know big cats can just jump and flash and be gone, but usually, you know, you catch a glimpse of color or a tail or something. And then here it was just a couple of weeks ago when we came up, we startled the Squatchlet right up in the tree there, and it crashed from right up here, back that way through 6 different trees, and then just disappeared. And it was right over here on the ground where I found handprints and a very good footprint, and some other kind of different, unusual prints that might have been fist marks, maybe knee marks. So I'm pretty sure that was the same young one that was up in my tree 8 years ago down at the cabin. So anyway, that's what's important about this spot here, and that's what happened that day that I saw the big guy. So we're going to move on down the hill, and I'll show you where it happened. So we'll be back in a few minutes. So here we are at the spot where I saw the big guy. We were coming down the road from right here. When we came around the corner, all the elk were up on this hillside here, and they were just standing there looking at us like they normally would. And we came on down the road and got to about right here, and I heard all this crashing beside me here. So I turned, and that's when I saw all the elk, the whole herd, just ran past right through here. And then I saw it just right through there, just right through there. And it was headed towards me, but then that was just for a split second. It turned and it angled, and these vine maples that are just right through here, it was just right on the other side of those. And I watched it to about right there, and that's when it was gone. It must have just turned and walked away down to where the land is lower there, and it was just out of sight behind the leaves, because I stood here for 10 minutes and I had no idea where it went. And but for that first split second that I saw it, you could see the massive jaw and just the broadness of the head and the ridge over the eyes. It had 2 ridges on either side that kind of went back and formed like an indentation in the middle of the forehead. Well, there was no forehead. Where the forehead would have been looked like it was caved in. And then that was just for a split second, and then it turned and was following the elk, and it was completely focused on the elk. And at that point, I could see how the head, this massive head, just went straight back into a cone shape. It was solid black. The hair didn't look dirty, matted, or anything. In fact, it looked very similar to the hair on Gabby's sides. It had just a little bit of a wave to it. And I did everything I could to just take in every detail. I knew it wasn't going to last long. You know, it was like, oh my God, there's Bigfoot. And my first thought was just to absorb everything. So I took in as much as I could. The skin was kind of a pasty white, and it was quite a contrast with the black hair. And I could even see the way that the hair on the back of the head just kind of fanned out over what would be a neck onto the shoulders, or lack of neck. It just went directly from the back of the head to the back. And it probably would have been beautiful with a good brushing. It was really something to see. So that's pretty much what happened here. It just was completely focused on the elk. The elk went that way, and I waited for it to come out from behind the leaves there, but it never did. I don't know where it went from there. And there were still leaves on the trees. They were yellow, and a lot of them were down, but not all of them were down. When I came back the next week to take a look out here, there had been a few storms had come through, and there were no more leaves on the trees. So it was really hard to say, to give any kind of an estimate as to how tall it was. But it was just right out there. I mean, not even 50 feet, I'd say. So it was a pretty darn clear sighting. So anyway, I guess that about wraps that up. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free to post them, and have a great night. Thanks. Bye.